Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Padaya Krishna Prishthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namaste Saraswati Devi Gaudavani Prachaya Shunyavadi Parshavishya. Okay, is my voice clear, Prabhu?
Absolutely, Prabhu.
So we are discussing this topic of crash course. Oh, sorry, not crash course, but was summarizing Bhagavad Gita. That's the topic. English or just so we are summarizing Bhagavad Gita, and yes, so I think I'll summarize the entire Bhagavad Gita in some half an hour, 40 minutes or so. So I think you have to just keep a track what I'm saying, otherwise you miss the whole link. Then it will be difficult to catch up with me. So I'll start straight away. Bhagavad Gita has 18 chapters, and the first chapter is observing the armies on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. This is the first chapter. As far as Srila Prabhupada has named these chapters like that. Although the original name of first chapter is Vishada Yoga, which literally translates as yoga of sorrow. Vishad means sorrow or something. But Srila Prabhupada has kept the name as observing the armies on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. He has named this chapter according to how Bhaktivedanta Thakur names these chapters as. So before I speak on summarizing Gita, one point I want to make clear. I'm not going to take the original name of the chapters in Sanskrit. We're going to take the chapters name how Srila Prabhupada has kept them. And then we will summarize Bhagavad Gita. Now, why I'm talking about the name of the chapter? Because when I will summarize Bhagavad Gita, I will refer to the name of the chapter and the link between the names of the chapter. Because what happens is, if the author Vyasadeva has kept the name of this chapter, when Krishna spoke Bhagavad Gita, he didn't name any chapter. Krishna was not saying to Arjuna, I'm speaking chapter 1 now, chapter 2, chapter 3. It was a discussion. Vyasadeva divided that discussion into 18 chapters and he kept the name. Now, whenever any author keeps the name of the chapter, the name of the chapter gives you the entire crux, what the chapter is trying to tell you, or the name of the chapter summarizes what the chapter wants to convey, the central message. So when we are summarizing Bhagavad Gita, we use this strategy of directly speaking about the name of the chapter and then extracting point from the name itself, because name itself is a summary of the entire chapter. And if you want to summarize 18 chapters of Bhagavad Gita, you need 18 names of the 18 chapters, and then just keep on linking them and you can understand the entire Bhagavad Gita. So now let's start. The first chapter name is Observing the Armies at the Battlefield of Kurukshetra. Now here, the most important point is that that Krishna is trying to observe, no, not Krishna, that Pandavas are observing Kurus and Kurus are observing Pandavas. That's how this battlefield is arranged. And Krishna is observing both Pandavas and Kurus. So observing the armies on the battle of Kurukshetra, the idea is who is observing the armies? That's the idea there. Now Arjuna is also observing from his vantage point. Duryodhana is also observing from his vantage point. Duryodhana represents Kurus, Arjuna represents Pandavas. And Krishna is observing the army from his vantage point. So the idea of the first chapter is that we have to observe the entire situation. The situation in this case is the battlefield of Kurukshetra. We have to observe the entire situation as Krishna is observing from his vantage point. There was a situation 5,000 years back, so battlefield of Kurukshetra, but we also undergo so many situations in our life. And sometimes we observe these situations as Arjuna or as Duryodhana, but we should observe these situations as Krishna did. That's one of the very important philosophical conclusions from the first chapter. Now, I don't want to give an impression here that Battle of Kurukshetra didn't happen, and this is all an allegory to help us just give an idea that we have to observe situations in life as Krishna did. No. The idea is that as Krishna is observing battlefield of Kurukshetra, and he's coming to a very different conclusion, what Arjuna came to conclusion. Arjuna is observing the same battlefield of Kurukshetra and he's saying, I don't want to fight. Krishna is observing the same battlefield and he's saying, Arjuna, you should fight. So there are two opposing contradictory conclusions right there on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Whose conclusion is correct? Krishna's. And Krishna in the end successfully convinces Arjuna that his conclusion is correct. So the second very important philosophical conclusion of first chapter is that the ideas of Krishna, Krishna's plan, Krishna's ideas, Krishna's desire, that is correct, that is perfect, that is to be understood and followed. And our own conclusions and own whims and ideas will lead us to disaster. Our own ideas and own conclusions will lead us to decisions in life which are completely opposite what Krishna decides. Arjuna decides completely opposite. He says, I don't want to fight. Krishna says, you must fight. So that's a very dangerous situation, and that's the first chapter all about. And that's mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam, Manorathena Sati Bahi. Anybody who's riding the chariot of mind, he will definitely meet an accident. But one who is surrendered to Krishna, he is likely to become successful. So that's the whole idea. Now the second chapter, this is the first chapter, but the whole question is how to see from the vantage point of Krishna, how to see situations and situations in our life and the situation in this world or whatever from the eyes of Krishna, how to do that. Why? Because we are practiced and we are accustomed, and it's a reflex in a subconscious mind that we try to judge situations or see situations from our own vantage point, from our own perception. And that leads us to problems. So how to shift that paradigm? How to get that paradigm shift? How to not to see from our eyes and how to see from the eyes of Krishna? That's the question which raises in the first chapter. Or when we read first chapter, this is the question we have to come. And entire Bhagavad Gita is an answer to this question. Or in other words, if I want to put it simply and straightforward, how to be Krishna conscious. Because Krishna consciousness means, this is a third philosophical conclusion of first chapter. Krishna consciousness means to see the situation in your life and to see even yourself through the eyes of Krishna. That's Krishna consciousness. Okay, how to do that? So now we come to second chapter. So the name of the second chapter is the contents of Gita summarized. Now Krishna, in summary, he says in second chapter, well, if you want to come to this, if you want to see the situation as I'm seeing, and if you want to see everything from my eyes, then you have to do devotion, bhakti. And to come to that bhakti, you have to first start from A, B, C, D steps. And what is A, B, C, D steps? The first step is to understand you're not this body and a soul. You're not this body, this flesh, this bones, blood. But you are spirit, soul. This is a first class. And then you go through many classes and then you reach to the ultimate class. That is Bhakti Yoga. That is, so second chapter is contents of Gita summarized. That's how it goes. And then third chapter begins. From third chapter, real talk begins. Now Krishna here says, okay, if you want to come to Bhakti Yoga, you want to practice Bhakti Yoga, you will not be able to practice Bhakti Yoga directly, properly. You can practice Bhakti Yoga directly, but you will not be able to practice it properly because you're conditioned. Because we are at bodily concept of life. Krishna said in Bhagavad Gita, your soul, you're not this body, but it's all theoretical for us. We don't realize. So this body will pull us down and will make us forget Krishna, so we'll not be able to practice Bhakti Yoga. So what to do? So Krishna starts with Karma Yoga. He says, well, to support Bhakti Yoga, you need other yogas like Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga. You are weak. A strong person, he can walk without the help of any stick. But a weak person, he needs a stick. So you are weak. The process of Bhakti Yoga is not weak, but you are weak. Or as it is said, the spirit is strong, but the flesh is weak. In the Bible it says. So you're weak. You want to practice Bhakti Yoga, but you cannot because of your whole sanskars and mental impressions and bodily reflexes, with bad bodily reflexes, which you have made sinful bodily reflexes. So that's difficult. So you need support. So he starts with Karma Yoga. Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga, 2 steps to support you to practice Bhakti Yoga until you become strong, and then you don't need these things, and then you can just practice Bhakti Yoga. So, Karma Yoga. Now, Prabhupada defines Karma Yoga as action in Krishna consciousness. So you need Karma Yoga. Karma means action, yoga means union with God. So when you're acting for God, that is Karma Yoga. So Krishna says, okay, you start acting for me. That's the idea. You do some action. So that is Karma Yoga. Now Karma Yoga means whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you think, try to link it with Krishna. So immediately to control mind, it's difficult. To always remember Krishna and chant his name, it's difficult. So you start acting on body platform. You do everything for Krishna. So Srila Prabhupada takes Karma Yoga as Krishna consciousness, by the way. Because Karma Yoga is helping us to become Krishna conscious. So what does Karma Yoga include? Karma Yoga might include all the actions we do in Krishna consciousness. So traditionally, Karma Yoga refers to Varnashrama system. That means you are doing some actions which are mentioned according to your nature, which are mentioned in scriptures by Krishna. So traditionally, Karma Yoga refers to Varnashram system, which is done to please Krishna. But Srila Prabhupada also takes another definition of Karma Yoga. And he says, well, any action done for Krishna is karma. So if you're cutting vegetables for Krishna, that's karma yoga. If you are doing some preaching, that's karma yoga. That is also bhakti yoga, by the way. So you see, bhakti yoga and karma yoga, they are one and the same and different also. So Prabhupada takes 2 angles of karma yoga in his commentaries. One angle of karma yoga is varnashram system, that is dharma, practicing religious principles according to your swabhava, according to status of life, Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, which is also necessary in the society at large. But another level of karma yoga which Prabhupada takes is any action which helps you to think about Krishna. That is also karma yoga. So that is Prabhupada takes this also. Prabhupada defines karma yoga as Krishna consciousness also. So okay, so anyway, so I'll put it simply here, just to make you understand what's happening in Gita. Krishna says in 3rd chapter, well, you start with actions. We have 3 things: actions, thinking, feeling, and willing. We think, we feel, and we act. Everybody does that. So Krishna says you cannot change your thinking and feeling immediately. So start with actions. So that is karma yoga. So in karma yoga, you don't really have feeling and thinking, but you act. So you see, so when new devotee comes in the temple, so what do you say? You say, okay, why? So you can mop the temple, isn't it? Or you can cut vegetables. So that's all actions for Krishna. So, or you can help me in this service. So he's introduced to karma yoga like that. He doesn't have any understanding, doesn't have feelings for Krishna. He's simply doing something on the orders. So that is called karma yoga. And it is called Krishna consciousness because these are activities of Krishna consciousness, but devoid of understanding and feeling. So that's karma yoga. Okay, so you start with that. And then 4th chapter is Jnana Yoga. So when you start doing actions, karma yoga, then you want to understand what you are doing. So then you enter Jnana Yoga, 4th chapter. And that's why Krishna in 4th chapter gives the knowledge of himself, knowledge of devotion. So because without understanding, actions are simply karma yoga. It's just an action. In the eyes of Krishna, it has value because you're acting for him. But it doesn't have much value because it's devoid of understanding and feelings. That's the whole idea. That is Karma Yoga. That is the difference between Karma Yoga and later I will tell, and Bhakti Yoga. In Bhakti Yoga, you have actions, understanding, and feeling. In Jnana Yoga, you have actions and understanding. So Krishna says Jnana Yoga, okay, then you take some knowledge, because without knowledge, actions are simply mechanical. And then 5th chapter, Krishna says, combine Jnana Yoga and Karma Yoga. That is action and Krishna consciousness. So you have to combine, because without Jnana, Karma Yoga, Karma Yoga is simply mechanical activities. Without Karma Yoga, without Jnana, without Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga is simply a theory. You're understanding everything. You're understanding, I must serve Krishna, I must serve Krishna, I must do something for him. And you're not doing anything. So what does it mean? Then it doesn't mean anything. Krishna says, always combine Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga. You act with an understanding. That will be pleasing to Krishna. Okay, and then comes 5th chapter. 5th chapter is we have done. And then comes 6th chapter. Then Arjuna, Krishna, what's that? 16. No, I have done 5th chapter. 16. Yeah. 4th chapter Jnana Yoga, 5th chapter is action Krishna consciousness. Now 6th chapter, Krishna raises a point of Dhyana Yoga. Krishna says, well, there is another process, Dhyana Yoga, which people used to practice, which can also help you, which can also make you strong, like Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga. And then you can do devotion nicely. But Arjuna rejects it. Arjuna says, no, the Dhyana Yoga is difficult. Previous ages, it was okay. But this age, I cannot do. Chancharami mana Krishna, Pramati Balavada. Arjuna says, I can't do this. So Krishna rejects this Dhyana Yoga process in Kali Yuga. And then comes 7th chapter. Krishna says, well, Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga will make you strong. But what's the use of strength if you don't walk? That's the whole idea. You're weak, you can't walk. Then you're strong and you still don't walk. And you don't walk. What's the point? You have to walk, and then there is function of strength. So Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga without Bhakti Yoga are absolutely useless. So Bhakti Yoga means you act for Krishna with understanding and with feelings for Krishna. That's the point there. Feelings. So in Karma Yoga there are actions, in Jnana Yoga there is understanding. But in Bhakti Yoga there is action, understanding, and feelings. There is feelings. Bhakti Yoga focuses on feelings and actions and understanding. So that is Bhakti. 7th chapter is what? 7th chapter is the knowledge of absolute truth. Yeah. So from 7 chapters begins a section of Bhakti Yoga. So Krishna says, okay, if you want to develop feelings for me, then you have to first know me. So in 7th chapter Krishna gives the knowledge of absolute truth. And you see, this is how we evolve. Any neophyte devotee, any person who initially joins temple, he is into Karma Yoga. He's not strictly in Bhakti Yoga because he's acting for Krishna without understanding. So he's on 3rd chapter. And then when he stays for some time in temple, then he enters Jnana Yoga. He wants to understand what's happening, what is Bhakti, what is the service, what I'm doing, why I'm doing this. That is Jnana Yoga. And what is God? What is God? Who am I? In a very general sense. And then slowly, then he acts with the understanding. He combines both. And then when he does that, after some time, he develops feeling for Krishna. And then he enters Bhakti. This is a natural evolution of soul. Anybody, when he enters Krishna consciousness. Now, one point you have to understand, Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga, actions and understanding without feelings for Krishna, that is Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga. But actions and understanding with feelings is Bhakti Yoga. So, for example, a new devotee who just joins, he preaches. Suppose he immediately just joins a temple. You ask him to mop the floor. That is actions for Krishna. He's doing for, you tell him this. You tell him this. You're doing for Krishna. Cleaning the temple, cutting the vegetables, or if he's going out to distribute books, you tell him, well, you're doing for Krishna. He's a very new person. Just he joins. He's a Kanishta Adhikari. So what he's doing? He's doing Bhakti Yoga or Karma Yoga. He's doing Karma Yoga because doesn't have any understanding, doesn't have feelings for Krishna. He's still stuck up on Karma Yoga. That is when absolutely new devotees, they are called Vaishnava Praya. They are called like Vaishnavas. Now, this is also pleasing to Krishna. It's not that it's not pleasing to Krishna because it's yoga. Yoga means connection with God. But because this is devoid of understanding and feelings, it's not that pleasing to Krishna. So that's Karma Yoga. But then when he advances, he enters Jnana Yoga. He wants to understand what I am doing. And then after some time, he develops feeling for Krishna. Then he comes to the 7th chapter. When he develops feelings for Krishna, then he wants to know him perfectly. Who is Krishna? That is 7th chapter. Knowledge of absolute truth. It's a beautiful name. Jnana Yoga is a very general knowledge of God and soul and body. But here now I want to know specifically about absolute truth, who is Krishna. So that's Bhakti Yoga. So in Bhakti Yoga, also devotees clean the floor, preach, do book distribution. But because all these actions are done with feelings, so this becomes Bhakti Yoga then. And then in Bhakti Yoga, there's special Shravanam and Kirtanam, chanting holy names and hearing about Krishna. Because now you have feelings, so you want to hear Krishna, you have to chant him, about him. So although we don't speak like this, any new person comes, we don't tell that you're doing Karma Yoga, you're not doing Bhakti Yoga. We don't tell him. We tell him you're doing Bhakti Yoga. But technically, if you focus in, then you understand you're doing Bhakti Yoga. First is Karma Yoga, then Jnana Yoga, then Bhakti Yoga. Like that it happens. So because Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga are leading to Bhakti Yoga, that is why Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga can also be called as Bhakti Yoga, even in the initial stages. That's the whole idea. That's what Prabhupada says. That's what Prabhupada translates Bhakti Yoga. Karma Yoga is Krishna conscious, Jnana also Krishna conscious sometimes. Okay, so 7th. And then what's 8th chapter? Then, so when you get knowledge of absolute truth, then you want to attain absolute truth. So come to 8th chapter, attaining the, what's that? Attaining the, what's the name of the chapter?
Attaining the Supreme, Prabhuji.
Attaining the Supreme, Supreme. So you come to the 8th chapter, attaining the Supreme. When you, that the point is when you have knowledge of Krishna, knowledge of absolute truth, when you will know about Krishna and you have feelings for him, then you will want to attain him. You develop a desire to attain him. That's a result of getting knowledge about Krishna. But if you're reading about Krishna without any feelings and without any understanding, then you don't develop a desire. So then you come to the 8th chapter, you get a desire. So when you get a desire to attain Krishna, you want to know how to attain him. That's the subject matter of 8th chapter, attaining the Supreme. And then, but to attain the Supreme, there is one confidential secret. And then you come to 9th chapter. The 9th chapter is the most confidential knowledge, Param Guhya Gyan. So what's the most confidential knowledge? The most confidential knowledge is service attitude. This is described in the 9th chapter. What is service attitude? Because only by service attitude we can attain Krishna, and there's no other way. By leaving enjoyment, propensity, and developing service attitude, we can attain Krishna. That is 9th chapter, the most confidential knowledge. And then comes the 10th chapter, which is what's that? The opulence of what's the 10th chapter? The opulence of absolute truth, I think. Yeah. So the opulence of absolute truth. So the 10th chapter. So when you serve Krishna with service attitude, you want to attain him. then Krishna slowly comes near you. He's pleased with you and he wants to meet you. He wants to come to you, near you. If anybody is pleased with you, he wants to meet you. So Krishna becomes pleased with you. He comes near the soul and he reveals his Aishwarya, he reveals his greatness and opulence. So that is 10th chapter, which is talking about the opulence of absolute truth. How Krishna is great. He gives his further knowledge of his greatness. And then 11th chapter, Arjuna asks a question, Krishna, you're great, you're God, but anybody can say I'm great, I'm God. So what's the proof? 11th chapter is the universal form. Krishna says, I'm not just speaking, I am God and I'm great. See. And he shows universal form. That's 11th chapter. And then 12th chapter is the devotional service, Bhakti Yoga. In 12th chapter, Krishna reveals his sweetness, his personal sweetness, his form. 12th chapter is talking about his form. And form of Krishna is sweet. So in 10th chapter, he reveals his greatness, Aishwarya. In 12th chapter is Madhurya, sweetness. So this completes the knowledge of absolute truth. From 7 to 12, you see the point. And then comes the 13th chapter, which is the modes of the nature, enjoyer, and consciousness. Nature, enjoyer, and consciousness. From 13th chapter, Krishna begins and he speaks well. If you're doing my bhakti, you need to know what are the obstacles on the path of devotion. That's 13th chapter, nature, enjoyer, consciousness. The enjoying propensity is an obstacle on the path of service attitude. Get rid of it. That is the 13th chapter. And now you might ask, from where this enjoying propensity is coming? Well, that's 14th chapter, 3 modes of material nature. Under influence of 3 modes of material nature, our enjoying propensity increases and it further blossoms. And because of enjoying propensity, we fall more into modes of nature. The more modes of nature, the more enjoying propensities. It becomes a loop. So Krishna says, well, these are the modes of nature working on you. Try to get rid of these modes of nature. That's 14th chapter. And then comes the 15th chapter, the Yoga of Supreme. So then Krishna, in 15th chapter, Krishna says, well, if you want to get rid of the influence of 3 modes of material nature, you have to understand me through the scriptures. You have to understand how I control these modes. And when you understand how I control these modes, then you surrender to me, and then I will help you to get out of these modes. That is Yoga of Supreme, 15th. And then Krishna says, and then obvious question comes, okay, if I'm getting freed of modes of material nature, and if I'm getting freed of enjoying propensity, how do I know that I'm getting free of this and I'm advancing in devotional service? That is 16th chapter, Divine and Demoniac. The more 16th and 17th chapter are 2 symptoms of advancement on devotional path. 16th chapter is Divine and Demoniac. That is, when you advance on devotional path, you develop divine qualities and demonic qualities reduces. And 17th chapter is the 3 divisions of faith. That is Shraddha Traya Vibhaga. So 17th chapter, Krishna says, and your faith, second symptom of advancement in devotional service is your faith will become very strong. Your faith will become so strong that no calamity in this material world can disturb you and can snatch you from my service. 17th. And 18th chapter is perfection of renunciation. Krishna says, if you remove all the obstacles, you reach to perfection. And what is perfection? Perfection is attaining love of God. But the last chapter's name is not love of God. Last chapter's name is perfection of renunciation. That means you attain perfection. Your mind becomes completely renounced from the attachments from this material world, from the attachment to your body, from the attachment to your own life and own I-ness, own sense of I, you become detached. And you develop a feeling, even my I belongs to Krishna. That is perfection of renunciation. And you have the love of God. And only after developing love of God, you will be able to see the entire situation from the vantage point of Krishna. Remember first chapter? The whole problem was how to see your whole world, everything from the eyes of Krishna. Only when you develop love of God, you'll be able to see from the eyes of Krishna this material world, even yourself, everything past, present, future. And that is called as Krishna consciousness. This is Bhagavad Gita in a nutshell. Hare Krishna, Srila Prabhupada. Any questions? Done here. Bhagavad Gita in a nutshell in 38 minutes. Yeah, 40 minutes. Yeah. Start. Okay, any questions? And then I'm done.
Hare Krishna, devotees, if you want, you can please ask Prabhuji any question you have. Yes, Anumataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, at times it seems like we are throughout the entire day, because there are so many things to be done the entire day. We are contemplating about, say, I'm doing chore A, and then while doing chore A, I'm contemplating that how do I save the next 5 or 10 minutes of my time to devote towards Krishna, or I need to read this verse, or I need to chant my two more rounds that are left. So the chore that I'm doing, clearly I'm just getting that done. No direct focus on that chore, because we are thinking about the next 5-10 minutes, that how I want to utilize that for Krishna. What does that mean? Does that mean, is that and when you are doing those things for Krishna, it seems very mechanical, because then I'm thinking, oh, okay, how am I going to save the next 5-10 minutes again of my time to think about what do I need to do for Krishna next? It seems like from one to another, and third, and then fourth. It seems mechanical instead of seems like a feeling to develop for Krishna. It seems very mechanical.
Well, to plan to do for Krishna is good. You start with this, and that's called karmyo.
Mm-hmm.
That's mechanical. So you are on third chapter. Most of us are on third chapter.
G. Third chapter seems like that.
Yeah. But there's an easy solution for this. You see, if you develop feelings for Krishna, then things will be good. How to develop feelings? 7th chapter gives a clue, knowledge of absolute truth.
Mm-hmm.
Read about Krishna. And that's the point I was talking today to devotees. How many of us even once think about personality of Krishna? We don't think. We don't think Krishna is, how Krishna's flute is, how Krishna's personality is. We are simply interested in the philosophy of Krishna. Am I right?
G, so true.
But not the personality of Krishna. That's the whole problem with it. We are interested in the name of Krishna, but not in the personality of Krishna. That's something like a demoniac tendency within us. So just like Madhu Kaitav, he stole Vedas, but he didn't want Krishna. So, but there were demons. So because of that demoniac tendencies, we are not able to actually connect with Krishna. But the answer is, you just do the reverse. Now you become interested in the personality of Krishna. That's why Prabhupada said, read Krishna book daily. Read about Krishna. Don't read what. So there are two things. One is what Krishna speaks, and one is what is spoken about Krishna. So most of the devotees around the world, they don't think about Krishna's personality, his qualities, his pastimes, his form. And we are always talking about philosophy and philosophy. But philosophy without personality has no value. So it can be demoniac, I mean to say, in that sense that we are trying to divorce philosophy from personality. And we want philosophy, but we don't want personality. We don't want Krishna actually, because we hate him. That's the whole point. That's why we don't remember him. That's why everything is mechanical.
Yes.
So yeah, my request is please read about Krishna, so your heart will become very simplified.
Mm-hmm.
And then everything will come in connection. And then what we will do, so it will be like mother caring for a child.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of situation. It will be very spontaneous.
Spontaneous.
Yeah. So the only solution is read about Krishna. Then just so you can read Nectar of Devotion after chapter 20. After chapter 20, Nectar of Devotion, it's full of Krishna's qualities, and Rupa Goswami goes in so much details. Read that again and again. You can read Krishna book again and again, and then you see, then it will be Krishna consciousness will become so easy, and Krishna conscious philosophy will become so sweet, rather than a complex points which we can't remember and we can't really. It's a puzzle, you know. This point there, this point there, this point there. It doesn't make much sense.
Doesn't link together.
Yeah. So that's the solution, madam.
Okay. One more question, Prabhuji. Sorry, it's not related to.
Yes.
It's not related to Bhagavad Gita. Prabhuji, I was listening to one of your lectures where you said, "वो था तुम भी चुप, हम भी चुप." I listened to that lecture, and then there was another lecture that I heard about how we should surrender to Krishna. So, Prabhuji, my question is, when I'm trying to understand the difference or the fine line between when you are taking things that this is Krishna's mercy, so you surrender and take it as it is without uttering a word, then how do you understand tum bhi chup and hum bhi chup?
I didn't get your question.
Matlab, jaise, for example, say things happen in our life, right? And then we say, this is, of course, Krishna's mercy because of our previous karma or whatever is happening. And then we wanted to surrender. So surrender is just go by the plan, don't revert back. Don't revert back means don't revert back and don't say, which is against tum bhi chup and hum bhi chup. So how do we relate these two together?
No, tum bhi chup, hum bhi chup is concerned with something management and with devotees community. I told that the policy in the temple is you do whatever you want, I do whatever I want, and you keep shut, I keep shut, and things keep on going, and then things become wrong. But because I want to stay in temple, so I don't speak anything, and you want to stay in temple, you don't speak anything, and we stay together. That was the idea there, isn't it?
Ji, tha. But I'm taking it to our own personal life, because everything Gita says is applicable to us in our personal life. So how do we take this? Like, I'm trying to find a balance between surrender means don't say anything, take it as Krishna's plan and keep going. And then, of course, in that keep going, you keep quiet and don't say a word. So that becomes, does that become tum bhi chup, hum bhi chup?
No. That's a completely different situation. Tum bhi chup, hum bhi chup is only, I was referring to a political management situation.
Okay.
This you're talking about some spiritual situation, which is I and Krishna. So here, tum bhi chup, hum bhi chup, I don't see any connection here, but you're trying to connect two different things. Yeah.
So I shouldn't be connecting those together because that's said in a separate scenario.
Yeah. Said in a separate scenario. That's a very different thing.
Okay. Thank you so much, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Dhanvat Pranam, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, the verse that Trinad bin Suni Chena, Prabhuji, how to implement this? This is for only for bhakti life or material life also, because if we
No,
implement
material,
this,
it's not for material life. It's only for spiritual life. In material life, whatever you want to do. Whatever is required, you have to do that. So there are different rules for material life, different rules for spiritual life. You can't mix them. That's what Prabhupada says, be like a lamb in devotees community and be like a tiger outside. There are different rules.
if we are very humble outside, then people will take us like a fool.
Yeah. So don't be humble.
Okay, thank you.
Well, Prabhuji, one thing, this seems like a double duality theory, that we are trying to cultivate humbleness.
Yeah, it is duality. Devotion is all about switching your personalities. If we don't know, you see the point. That is called mental control, by the way. An uncontrolled mind will not be able to switch his personality. He'll be the same here, he'll be the same there, he'll be the same. He'll just go by his reflexes. An animal is an animal, whether he's in a building, whether he's on the street, he's in the house, he's an animal. But a human life begins when a person knows how to switch his roles. Just like a female, with the husband, she's a wife. With the child, she's a mother. With her parents, she's a child. So in a civilized society, we know how to switch our roles. That is called civilization. But barbarians, they don't know. They're like animals. So a woman is a woman, whether with husband, whether with son, whether with father, and it's all nonsense. She's like, in barbarian society, they're simply thinking of sex and violence wherever they are. But that's unlike Indian society, which is civilized. So civilization or dharma teaches us how to switch roles, how to switch our personalities. We have to act differently in different situations. That is dharma. That is teaching of it. That is starting of human life, by the way. So, which modern society calls as diplomacy or artificiality. Because modern society believes in liberalism, openness, and that's why modern youth says, no, we have to be frank with friends and we have to be frank with parents. Hi dad, hi mom, let's be open, let's talk nonsense with our parents also, and let's see nonsense things. Dad, you come and let's see adult movie together. And dad says, yeah, good, my boy, you have grown up. So this is all nonsense, animal life. This is which, and they think civilized life is diplomacy. They don't like. So this is not diplomacy. This is civilized life. We act differently with devotee community and we act differently outside. And why do we do that? Because in that way we will be able to maximum benefit ourselves and others. So in Vaishnava society we are very humble because that benefits our soul and even devotees. But outside we are not humble because that doesn't benefit either us and either them. So it creates a chaos. So it is not diplomacy. It is called civilization.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. That helps.
Krishna Narayani Mataji.
हरे कृष्णा प्रभु जी, थैंक यू। हरे कृष्णा, दंडवत प्रणाम प्रभु जी। बहुत अच्छा बताया आपने, इतने कम समय में पूरा जो डिटेल बताया भगवद गीता के बारे में। जैसे अभी अन्नू माता जी ने बताया कि जैसे हम कोई सेवा करते हैं मंदिर से रिलेटेड, हमें मैनेजमेंट अगर गलत करते हैं तो हमें उधर बोलना चाहिए या नहीं बोलना चाहिए? फर्स्ट क्वेश्चन दिस। अगर हम बोलते हैं तो मतलब कुछ बाधाएं आती, जैसे अभी माता जी ने बताया हम भी चुप और तुम भी चुप का, तो इस तरह हमें कुछ गलत दिख रहा है क्योंकि हमने कभी देखा नहीं है हमारे जो
Narayani Mata ji, just a minute. Yeah. We should speak in English or Hindi? Like, what's this? If I speak in
मुझे इंग्लिश में बोलना, हिंदी में बोलना ठीक लगता है। आप इंग्लिश में आंसर दे सकते
हैं। ठीक है, बस ठीक है, फिर बोल।
ओके। मतलब बहुत बार ऐसे होता है कि बाधाएं आ जाती है, फिर ऐसे लगता है कि ऑफेंस कर रहे हैं, तो कुछ बराबर सही से पता नहीं चलता है कि हमें
ठीक है, मैं समझ गया.
ओके ओके.
तो वो सीधा the question is that was a whole lecture. हम भी चुप तुम भी चुप. The question is, in the temple, should we speak against what is wrong or we should keep shut? That's the question. If we speak against, then we'll end up in problems with management. If we keep shut, then we have problems with ourselves, our own conscience. So what do? So, well, it's a very tricky situation. Ideally, what is wrong, we should speak up. But then there's wisdom. The wisdom says we have to know what is a major, some minor things we can always neglect. We should also know how to neglect things. If we don't know how to neglect things, then we'll speak up against everything and we'll create problem for ourselves and others, because everybody does mistake. So minor mistakes, we should be able to neglect them, but major deviations, which can have catastrophic effects on devotees' life and on the movement, that we have to speak up against, even if we go against management. We should not keep shut, because we are seeing it as create major problems with devotees' spiritual life and with the mission. So then you speak up. But if you cannot speak up, because sometimes new people, they are afraid, they can't speak up. So then you can tell to some other senior devotee your problems, that this is a problem, this is a major deviation, and then try to discuss it out and then let them handle things. And if still same things are going on, then just don't associate with those people. That's all, finished. That's the whole point we have to go along. What to do? Unfortunate, but it's like.
Thank you. Hi.
Gopinath Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, thank you for the overview of Bhagavad Gita. And you described gradually how from Karma Yoga, then you develop Jnana Yoga, like you do something for Krishna and then develop more knowledge about Krishna. And Bhakti Yoga, you referred that you develop feelings for Krishna. I mean, I thought that was very wonderful, and then you backed it up with try to read Nectar of Devotion, the later chapters, and Krishna book. I usually was always referring to Bhakti Yoga as the definition of pure devotional service, Anyabhilashita Shunyam. And
yeah,
would you see a connection with this developing feelings for Krishna and with this Anyabhilashita Shunyam?
Yeah, it's all feelings, by the way. Anyabhilashita Shunyam, we don't have any other desire. Now, the desire is feelings. I want that. What is desire? Desire is a feeling. The major component of desire is feeling. It's not just thoughts. It's not actions. It's feelings. I want that. Desire means wanting. Wanting is feeling. So, Anyabhilashita, you should not have any other feeling, Anyabhilashita, except the feeling for Krishna. Right there in the first line, there is feeling. Jnana karmadi anavritam. These feelings should not be covered by jnana and karma. This is what we were talking, Bhagavad Gita, karma jnana. These feelings should not be covered with karma and jnana. In other words, these feelings of devotion should not be covered with some mechanical actions. These mechanical actions, that is karma, and jnana means some knowledge, dry knowledge of soul and this material world disconnected with Krishna. No, because these karma and jnana will block these feelings. Any mechanical action in devotional service and any understanding about God, which is in very general sense, and the understanding of soul and body without the knowledge of God, that will block these feelings. So don't do that. And then anukuliyena, your feelings should be favorable for Krishna, should be for his pleasure. Krishna anushilanam, the feelings should be expressed, anushilanam, should be expressed in actions. It should not be just kept in the heart simply as feelings. Because any feelings which is not expressed, it's not love. Love means expression. And that's called bhakti. That's all. So the whole verse is talking about feelings, if you look from that angle.
Thank you for that. Thank you.
Okay.
Krishna, Archana Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, like you explained this Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Dhyana Yoga in connection to Bhakti very nicely. And that is what Srila Prabhupada also says in most of his purports. But sometimes when we are reading the purports of Bhagavad Gita, I also get sort of a feeling that he's also condemning karmis, jnanis and yogis at some point. And how he says that the realization of God.
He's condemning karmis, jnanis and yogis, but he's not condemning karma yogis and jnana yogis. There's a difference.
Yes, that is what I want to understand, that difference. It's not so clear.
So karmis are materialistic people. Jnanis are philosophers. And yogis are modern, new age people who are like so-called yogis. They are doing some asana pranayam, that sort, for health. But karma yogi and jnana yogi, it's all connected with God, as we described. So there's a lot of difference there. So Prabhupada condemns karmis, jnanis and yogi, but Prabhupada doesn't support karma yogi, jnana yogi, and like this.
But then Prabhuji, Prabhupada also says that jnanis and yogis, they also get God realization and liberation, but it is incomplete. But then if they don't link this to God at all, how do they get this God realization or liberation?
No, they karmis and jnanis and yogis, when Prabhupada is mentioning, that is in a very general sense. He's saying, see, karmis cannot get God realized. Karmis materialistic people, they don't get God realized.
Not karmis, but jnanis and yogis.
Jnanis and yogis, when Prabhupada is mentioning, those jnanis and yogis, when they get association with devotees, then they get God realization. Otherwise, no.
Okay.
Because jnanis are philosophers, yogis are spiritualists in a very general sense, who are doing some asanas and yogas. But so they are open to understanding of some higher power. They are not like karmis, materialistic people. So that is why when they get association of pure devotees, they quickly understand and in the end get God realization, but not independently. They cannot have.
And then he also says that the realization that they get is incomplete. They get Brahman realization and Paramatma realization.
Yeah, of course they get. Just a minute, I have to increase the voice. Can you speak?
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, okay. So they see, although they get association of devotees, most of these jnanis and yogis, they cannot get rid of their own conceptions completely. So that is why they get Brahman realization or Paramatma realization. They can't go beyond that. But if they get a very powerful association of pure devotee, then they can even cross Brahman and Paramatma, they can go to Bhagwan realization. But it's very difficult for them because of their practice, previous practice. Because jnanis are accustomed to meditation. So even if they come in contact with pure devotees, they hear about Krishna, they start meditating on Krishna. They cannot just simply hear and chant like gopis. It's difficult. So that is why they end up in Brahman realization. And similarly like yogis. So it depends what kind of sadhu they are coming in contact. If they're coming in contact with very powerful sadhus, they can come to Bhagavad realization. If they're not come in contact with so powerful sadhus, then they end up in Brahman and Paramatma realization, like that.
So one more thing, Prabhuji, having said this Brahman and Paramatma realization, Prabhuji, what exactly do we mean by Brahman and Paramatma realization? What are the symptoms?
Brahman realization means they see the effulgence of Krishna.
They actually see.
Yeah, they actually see within their soul. And Paramatma realization, they see the Paramatma form of Krishna, 400 form within their heart.
So
But they cannot talk with him, they cannot play with him. That is Bhagavad's realization.
So what would be their symptoms? So it means, how do we know that this is a Brahman realized and this is a Paramatma realized person?
Well, we cannot know like that. You have to ask him. He'll tell.
Okay. Thank you, Prabhuji. Thanks.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, I have a question.
Yeah.
Oh, this is like a slightly like it's thing. Like, what's the connection between the divine and demonic natures and the three modes of material nature? So, does one become inclined towards the lower modes because of a demonic nature, or vice versa? How does this?
Well, it's like chicken and egg. So, because of our demoniac nature, we become attracted to lower modes. And when we become attracted to lower modes, we go further down into demoniac nature. Now, what is first? Modes of material nature or demoniac nature? Lower modes or demoniac nature? Well, if you want to really like harp on this point, what is first? The first is demoniac nature and not modes. Right. Why? Because if we say the first is modes, then there's a whole problem that we are blaming the modes and we are saying, I'm okay, but because the modes have become like this. And this is a very wrong philosophy. Right. So, and by the way, because of this blaming game, we are there in material world. Oh, it's not my fault. It's his fault. It's his fault. It's his fault. Okay. It's not my fault. It was Krishna's fault that I'm here. You see, it's all blaming game. So if we really want to harp on this point, what is first? Let us come to, okay, my demoniac nature is a problem. And that will help us more rather than saying lower modes is a problem. So I have to change myself. And if we can change our demoniac nature into divine nature, lower modes, action on lower modes stops. But if we do the vice versa, okay, lower modes are the problem, then we will try to stop lower modes and we will never try to change ourselves. And we might be able to stop lower modes by some artificial process, which Bhagavatam says, Yama Adi Yoga Pate Kama Loga. Bhagavatam says, yes, by Yam and Niyam and Yoga process, you can stop the lower modes, but Mukunda Seva Advat, but unless you serve Krishna, you are not going to cross it. You are again going to come back into that. Because still the demoniac nature is there within you. Correct. So that's why demoniac nature is first. So we are the problem.
Okay, so thank you for this, Prabhu. But like, where does this come from? Like, if we read the second canto of Bhagavatam, we hear that like the scouring of Ahankar. It's like first when the living entity desires to enjoy separately from Krishna. So like here we can assume that when living entity first enters into the material world, he is not like grossly demonic. It's just this desire, Krishnera Bahirmukh, just little
That's
desire.
true. That's true.
So that is the fundamental which kind of like deviates us further and further from Krishna.
Yeah. That small, you see this, the whole material life is like, so let me just put in a mathematical language. It's like a hyperbola.
Right.
So you start very little and then it keeps on going far. Whole material life is a hyperbola.
Like
it's a small free will choice, and then it develops into, then Krishna is there and you go here, there, and you end up somewhere else, like that.
Okay. Yeah, that's like a bit difficult. Like we see Mayavadis, for instance, like all strict rules and regulations, they're practically like Sattva, but denying Krishna, denying the personality of God. Like in my personal experience also, I have seen like they actually get very angry. Even the most ignorant of Mayavadis, those who have not studied Vedanta or anything, they just have this rudimentary understanding of Advaita. Even they get very angry.
Yeah. You are right. I have also seen so many stupid Mayavadi.
Yeah, very sattvic otherwise. No non-veg, nothing at all. Like getting up in the morning, chanting Gayatri.
They are not sattvic actually. You know what? My realization is they are in more complete mode of ignorance. That's why they look sattvic.
Yeah, inactivity. Thank you, bro. That clarifies the problem.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. Yes, Reshma Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Dhanvat Pranam.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, when you were summarizing the third chapter, you mentioned that traditionally Karma Yoga refers to the Varnashram system.
Yeah.
And now we don't have anything as Varnashram system. But we are trying to do Karma Yoga. So how do we link this? Well, everywhere it's being talked about the developing Varnashram system and all.
Yeah, we have a Varnashram. I am sitting in Varnashram and I am at Bhadrika Ashram. I am sitting here. So Karma Yoga refers to both. So Karma Yoga is in two parts. You see, Karma Yoga is Varnashram, by the way. It is Varnashram. Where people follow the rules and conducts of Dharma because it is dictates of God. That's all. With a slight understanding, not so much developed understanding. And of course, in Varnashrama, they don't have developed feelings for Krishna. But they're acting according to their nature and they're getting trained up according to scripture as far as their nature is concerned. This is technically Varnashrama. So this kind of thing supports Bhakti Yoga because a mind is peaceful and then we can practice Bhakti Yoga. Now we're trying to develop Varnashrama, but Prabhupada takes the definition of Karma Yoga in a very broad sense, not in a specific sense of Varnashrama. He says Karma Yoga is any action for Krishna, and that includes Varnashrama, by the way. In Varnashrama, we are acting according to the dictates of Krishna, so we are acting for Krishna. He's saying this, so we are doing this, and he becomes pleased. He becomes satisfied. It is in Varnashrama, also people know that if I follow these codes and conducts, Krishna becomes satisfied, but it's not like Bhakti Yoga where we have real feelings for the person Krishna. It's in Varnashrama, it's very general sense. God is there, he becomes pleased. God is Krishna. We have to follow duties. The whole focus is on duties according to Varnashrama. But in Bhakti Yoga, focus is on the person Krishna and not duties per se. So now here we enter a different point of focus. By focus, we define what is Karma Yoga, what is Jnana, what is Bhakti Yoga. Otherwise, things are, even in Varnashrama, people chant Krishna's name, but they're not doing as in Bhakti Yoga with feelings, with actually a lot of developed feelings. That's the idea. So Karma Yoga refers to Varnashrama. Prabhupada mentions in the purpose, and we're trying to do that because it's favorable for Bhakti Yoga. But because the Karma Yoga in very broad sense means acting for Krishna. Either you do in Varnashrama or you directly act for Krishna. So there are two actions for Krishna. One is indirect action, one is direct action. That is Karma Yoga. Indirect action is Varnashrama. You follow his orders according to Swabhava. Direct action is you direct act for Krishna, cleaning his temple or directly linked with Krishna. So Prabhupada takes Karma Yoga largely in Bhagavad Gita as direct actions for Krishna. That's why he says Karma Yoga is Krishna consciousness. But because at the level of Karma Yoga, even if it is direct action, it is devoid of understanding and feelings. That is why it is called as Karma Yoga. But when there are understanding and feelings also, then this is no longer called as Karma Yoga. This is called as Bhakti Yoga. So because Karma Yoga is helping us to enter Bhakti Yoga, because anybody who comes initially, he will not have understanding and feelings. So technically he's Karma Yoga. But because Karma Yoga helps to enter Bhakti Yoga, that is why we call Karma Yoga also as Bhakti Yoga, even in initial stages. Like that. This is a whole scheme. And this is what Prabhupada is doing. That's why Prabhupada calls Karma Yoga as Bhakti Yoga. In his purpose, Prabhupada calls Buddhi Yoga as Bhakti Yoga. Buddhi Yoga is Jnana Yoga, but he calls it Bhakti Yoga in his Bhagavad Gita purports. Because ultimately it is helping us enter Bhakti Yoga. But that karma yoga which Prabhupada is mentioning in Bhagavad Gita, it's largely direct karma yoga, direct actions. Indirect actions, that's varnashram. And Prabhupada says that's also there. And Prabhupada says if we can develop that, indirect actions also, it will support direct actions. And it will create a very favorable atmosphere for directly acting for Krishna, and then he can evolve to higher levels like that.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Means Prabhupada has really simplified understanding what situations we are going to be in.
Yeah, that's true.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Yes, Anumata.
Prabhuji, I have a question. Prabhuji, it's said that take the most benefit of a sadhu sang. And today I wanted to do that. But please, my humble request, if my question offends, please forgive me. I just want to ask so that we can get directions from you. Prabhuji, before coming to bhakti, you also experienced the material life, the way we are stuck in now, like badly chained we are in now. So knowing the stages where we are at, what recommendation would you give us from your practical experience so we can actually get towards our goal? It seems like we are moving in the vicious circle, and it's never-ending vicious circle.
Yeah, I am also still in that vicious circle.
That means I'm just at the dot of the vicious circle. It hasn't started.
That you have to think. So what to do, by the way? You see the point, what is my practical realization is. I mean to say there's a lot of theory out there. But what practically works is chant the holy names very nicely. Chanting the holy names is the only way to get actually to advance and get realizations. That is very important. And by chanting the holy names very nicely, I mean to say chanting the holy names with proper conception. That's first thing. And the second thing, if we want to get out of this complete crazy situation, we have to be alert. We can't afford to not to be alert, because illusion is always ready. Always ready. I mean to say, even at the last breath, illusion will be there to make you fall down. So she is ever ready. Alert means we have to be alert. Yeah, we have to be alert not to fall into sense gratification. So although we have habits and reflexes, but we have to fight with ourselves. But this fight we lose in this fight. Why? Because this fight is quite frustrating, because these forces working within us are very powerful. But this fight can also become sweet if you're fighting for someone. So if two people are just fighting for themselves, it becomes frustrating. But if you're fighting for some other person, then it becomes very sweet. So if we learn how to fight with these powerful forces for Krishna, then this fight becomes very sweet, and we get a lot of strength. That we have to become alert, not to fall into sense gratification, and fight with these forces, because Krishna will become happy. In fact, today morning I was telling, sense control is the best form of worship of Krishna. That is a sense that in that way, people who are Gyanis and Yogis, they also do sense control. We also do sense control, but their sense control is like frustrating. Our sense control is sweet, because we are doing for Krishna. We are very conscious that if we control our senses, it will please him. Why? Because he has asked us to do this, and we are doing for him. That's all. So that's why sense control is an act of worship of Krishna. It's like offering lamb and incense to Krishna. So that first verse of Nectar of Instruction, Bacho Begam Mansa Krodha Begam, that is in fact worship of Krishna. That's what Bhagavad Gita also says, and that is what Bhagavad Gita says, 4th chapter. So even that capacity, we remain alert with proper understanding, then we can slowly come out of this vicious cycle. We have to be really, Prabhupada says, unless you go to spiritual world, you have to be alert. Even if you're liberated, you have to be alert. Maya is always there. So these two things, we can chant nicely and we remain alert. But the whole point is how to remain alert. That's the whole question. We become alert. So then,
लगता नहीं है कि we, like personally लगता नहीं है that we will become in alert, but we are always in alert.
So then that's why we have to take association of very good devotees who can make us realize that you are still in alert. You think you're alert, but you're in alert.
Yes.
That's the whole point. Real sadhus, they will always make us realize, my dear sir and madam, you think you're doing devotion, but according to us, this is not at all devotion. And then we get a shock. Oh my God, I was thinking I'm a devotee, but I'm not a devotee. What's happening?
Yes.
That's a sadhu. So if we associate with these good sadhus who help us realize our problems, our pitfalls, and our hang-ups, then we advance very quickly. And then we can remain alert. And that's that's what Maya is doing. Maya will make you feel that you are alert. But actually you are completely alert. And she'll catch you. Because we are an illusion that I'm alert. Okay, I'm good. I'm going to program. I'm with devotees. I'm reading. I'm chanting. And everything is almost fine. But then Maya is saying, okay, you're almost fine. So you are in alert. You are now thinking that you're alert. Fine. But actually you are completely in my grips, and she'll just trip you off. Because then we become lazy. We become casual. Everything is okay. And that's what Bhaktivedanta said.
Yes.
We fall down because we become comfortable. That is the cause of a fall down. So these two things, if we keep in mind, we can come out. Of course, we need patience. It needs time. It doesn't happen in one night. And pray. Pray. Prayer is very powerful.
For sure, Prabhuji.
So like that, and keep on going. That's all.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Dandavat pranam.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you for the wonderful class and these amazing answers. I just have one maybe practical sort of an answer from you. Nowadays we hardly ever see devotees who, like, having stayed with you for a while, I've sort of come to realize that not many devotees are to your standard, or with the practices that you do, the level of sadhana that you have. And then you also in your lectures you mention these very basics of being a devotee: Mangalarati, chanting properly, so on and so forth. But there are many such small philosophical deviations that we see often in devotees, and even if they are at the same level as us, or even our juniors, it sometimes happens that they don't listen, and just previously you mentioned that we should ignore them. So then how do we ignore is my question, basically.
Well, ignore, shut your eyes, that's all. Shut your eyes, shut your ears, shut your mouth. Just leave them. See, the point is, ignoring is also compassion, by the way. General tendency of man is to condemn or to interfere and try to help them. That is a man, an ordinary human being. But a wise person knows how to help people by ignoring them. we can say ignore, but there's another good term. Ignore is not a good term in one sense. It carries a bad connotation. But a good term for ignore is giving some time and space to them. Let them learn through time. And that also counts, because if we give advice before time, nobody is going to understand anything. They'll revolt rather. So that ignoring is, we are giving them space and time. Let them understand through time, and Krishna will sort out for them. And then we wait for proper time when we can tell them. We are not just sitting that I'll not just tell them till eternity. You see? But we are waiting for a proper time when to tell them. That is wisdom. But before time, if we tell, that harms them more. So ignore is not, ignore doesn't mean just don't do anything till eternity. That's a stupid policy. But you wait for an opportune time. The time when they develop relationship with you, maybe. The time when they become themselves wise and they start understanding philosophy. Or the time when they're ready to accept things and listen from everybody. At that time you tell them. So that's the meaning of ignoring. And that's how we ignore. Because we understand that sometimes by ignoring, it helps others. And we can help them to elevate rather than just to them doing something and then harming them and harming ourselves. We become also frustrated. So that's also there, this picture. And this is how we ignore. Krishna is doing the same thing, by the way. Krishna is seeing so many faults in us, but he doesn't tell you or us. He's not telling us. He's waiting for a proper time when he will tell us, through some sadhus or through some incidences or through some, he'll give us realizations within our heart. Because he knows that otherwise, why he made this material world? He's waiting for a time. So otherwise, if he wants to tell us everything to everyone, then he would have just made some counseling rooms in spiritual world. That's all, and they'll be all living entities. And hey, this is like this, is like this, and this is like this. Come on, and it's not like that. Now, Krishna has given us eternal time to correct ourselves. Now, what about that? And slowly he takes. Sometimes he takes incarnation. Sometimes he sends pure devotees, and they tell us. If we don't listen, then okay, he waits for some time, then again he sends. Because everything should come from a free will. Otherwise, it doesn't develop into love. It becomes force, and that doesn't help anybody. So that is also wisdom. That is also maturity. That's how we know.
Thank you, Prabhu. One final question.
Okay.
You mentioned that we have to think of Krishna as a person, and when we are
yes, speak.
So when we are reading his pastimes or listening or hearing his pastimes, we start thinking of him as a person, and we sort of reflect that or whatever experience we've had in material world, we are just sort of experiencing them, that Krishna is like this or like this, whatever. But then when we are not hearing, that is that goes away basically, and then whatever we are doing becomes mechanical. So what is the solution to this, that we don't forget that Krishna is a person?
Well, you have to keep on hearing. That's the solution. And there's no other shortcut. There's no solution. Keep on hearing, keep on reading, keep on meditating on those, and that's all. No other solution.
Understood. Thank you, Prabhuji. I think
okay, Jai.
We are at the end of the questions.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Prabhu.
Srila Prabhupada ki.
Jai. Thank you so much, Prabhuji.
Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo
वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः।
Prabhupada ki.
Jai.
Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama